How are you doing? I hope you're well today. Now, many times we find ourselves hurt, heartbroken, disappointed because someone perceived us in a way that we do not appreciate, or someone judged us in a manner that we considered unfair, that we considered prejudiced, that we considered biased. Now, many times we hold on to biases against people, consciously or unconsciously, because of something that they represent, or something that they stand for, or something that we think that they stand for, and based on that we judge them. Sometimes correctly, sometimes so wrongly. We're talking about biases today. How do you spot a bias? Why do we have biases, or why do we hold biases against people, and where do such biases find their root? Let's talk about that briefly. I am StephREDD. A few days ago, I was having a chat with someone who I happened to be in the same group with. And we were sharing our anxieties about January, beginning of every year. Most domestic workers tend to come pretty late, or they don't come at all, or they just keep moving the date they're going to return, and throwing their house owners into a lot of chaos, because then you're resuming work and you need someone to manage the home, you need someone to watch over the children, you need someone to take care of the basic things in the house so that you can actually focus on your business or focus on work. And there we are, she says she has just gotten someone. I'm like, oh, you're lucky. Okay, mine returned after the holiday. She came right on time. But in her case, she said, well, she's gotten a new person. And I asked, how is she? She said, she's okay. It's just that she's so tribe. She called the person's tribe. And I say, okay, what's wrong with the tribe? So, well, now. I said, what's wrong with the tribe? And she just laughed. So what exactly is the challenge you're having with this person? And she said, well, she's hardworking. She's really hardworking. Just that the tribe, what else is wrong? And she's black. She's really black. Okay, I'm black too. What's wrong with that? Well, nothing really. And then at that point, I immediately spotted a bias, a tribal bias, which is one of the things that plague us as a people in Africa, that plague us as a people in Nigeria, that plague us as a people in the world, because we segregate based on tribal lines and race lines, and I'm going to come to all of that. So when I began to ask her further, to ask exactly what was it, she actually said there was nothing wrong with this person, but this person is actually very hardworking. She wakes up early. She's teachable, which is one of the things you want to look out for in an employee, in a domestic worker. You want to have someone who's teachable, someone who's willing to learn, someone who's open to embrace new things. And then I told her about my story with the person that is currently a domestic worker in my home. That the first time the person came, okay, she was just all that. I wasn't enthused. I've had my fair share of domestic worker disappointment. I can write a story, I can write a movie on what my eyes have seen, my ears have heard with domestic workers, but that story for another day. And when this one came, when we got this lady, I was indifferent. Like, okay, well, you're just like any other one. You come and go, and the way you come and go is the way I let you come and go. But after teaching her, taking her through the process and all of that, about a week, closing up on 1 week, when it was time to go to church. So all my domestic workers, I get over the years, and I've had quite a number, I somewhat insist that they follow me to my place of worship. And whatever it is, of which I'm like, you have to go to my place of worship because you're going to be with me, you're going to be watching over my kids. I need to be sure of what your religious inclination is, so that I can somewhat gauge where your values are and be able to speak with you with similar concerns or similar areas of interest. And so this particular domestic worker says she's not going to, she can't follow me to my religious place of worship because she has hers. So even though we happen to be in the same sect, we are all Christians, but she has a particular one she goes to, and based on that she can't follow me to mine. I'm like, if you can't follow me to my own church, I'm sorry, you can't work with me. Because I was put off just by the fact that she said she couldn't follow me there. So I go into the room and I'm just chatting with my husband. I tell him, imagine, look at what this lady says. And his response was, okay, that's her choice of worship. Why do we have to force her to worship where we worship? If she says of what she had said, that she would go to her religious place of worship when she goes on her leave days. And I was insisting that you have to follow me every week when we're going to my place of worship. And my husband says, if she's not comfortable with following us to our place of worship, that's fine. And then I go, I need to be sure of who's working with us because the children are watching. And he said something significant, that the children are going to be in a world where there are several places of worship and several beliefs. They have to understand that and learn how to respect and regard people regardless of their inclinations. And you teach people not by forcing them, you teach them by being a truth that you think is believable. And if they believe your truth, I mean, they would come around someday, but hey. But then I let it be. And when I started thinking through the entire thing again, I recognized that it's not like I was uncomfortable. I wasn't just uncomfortable, I was unconsciously afraid. Because I had grown up learning about this particular sect and being told all sorts of things about the sect. Never experienced, just heard. From parents, from guardians, from friends, from teachers, from uncles, from relatives, from extended family, about this particular sect. Haven't seen them, haven't heard about them, but never personally experienced them. And based on that, I had a bias. I formed a bias. I formed a preconceived notion. And I began to ask myself, what am I really afraid of? Just questioning that alone helped me to recognize that the reason I had actually been somewhat almost hostile to her and not wanting to allow her make a mistake, which was human to make mistakes, because she's coming with her own, having been formed in her own way on how she does things. And coming into my home, it's foolhardy to expect that she would know how I do things and do them excellently from day one without making mistakes. So I wasn't giving her that room to make mistakes, pardon her, teach her better. Instead, I was being harsh, and I had to call myself to order. And that was actually when I started asking myself, what exactly is making me harsh towards her? What exactly is that thing that she has done that is making me treat her this way or making me respond to her this way? And while I was checking myself, I quickly recognized that it was the bias I had towards the fact that I questioned her choice of place of worship, and then I questioned the fact that I couldn't have my way to get her to do what I wanted. And because of that bias, I began to unconsciously speak to her in a manner that wasn't pleasing, in a manner that was somewhat degrading. And because I consciously listen to myself when I talk, I am able to know how to catch my thoughts and say, hey, you were hostile there. Hey, why did you speak like that? What is actually the feeling? What are you thinking that is making you to feel the way you're feeling? And is that feeling that is making you to act the way you're acting? And just checking up on all of that made me recognize that I had a bias towards her, which was because of the bias that I had towards the particular sect she attended or that she chose to be a part of. And this, I just pretty much told this story to that colleague of mine who was talking about her discomfort with this new domestic worker who happened to be from a particular tribe in Nigeria, which she was uncomfortable about. And I asked her, have you checked to be sure that your discomfort has nothing to do with how you feel about these people, but what have these people really done to you? Is it because you have a personal experience, or because of something that you were told, or something that you have seen? And based on that, you have judged an entire people, such that you now question every single person that comes from there without giving them a benefit of doubt. Of course, there are people that are from a particular place or from a particular location, or that worship a particular whatever, or are in a particular way, that have excesses. We're humans. And I think that is where we flaw, where we think that a particular person, because of what the person stands for, what the person does, or what the person says, should be perfect or more perfect than any other. All human beings are flawed. All of them, with exception to none, because we are in mortal bodies, and this mortal body is flawed, highly flawed. So when we now think that either we are more perfect than someone else, or that another sect is not good enough, or that another religious inclination, or that another tribe or another language is not good enough, we now tend to judge every other person that way, or someone from a particular tribe, or someone that speaks a particular language hurt us. We had a boyfriend, we had a girlfriend who broke our hearts. That was that person's character and that person's choice to behave in the way that they did. But because of that, we are probably in a place where we find ourselves narrating an issue that we had, and then a second person comes and says, oh, someone from a particular tribe too did such and such to me. And we're like, oh, the person that did such and such to me was from that tribe too. And maybe you hear a third person, and based on maybe 2 areas of reference, or 3 or 4 or 5 or even 10, we categorize a bunch of people who could run into millions as being like 3 people that we experienced, or like 3 people that we heard about. And then we pass judgment, we judge them, we begin to call names, and we somewhat begin to limit ourselves and even limit their capacity to be of help to us if they have that capacity. And I'm talking about capacity because this particular domestic worker that I had concerns about because of her choice of where to worship, when I decided to free myself of the bias and say, hey, she has not done anything particularly wrong to me. If she has erred in a thing that I have told her to do, it's because she doesn't know how to do it. It's like a child that you're trying to teach a language, that you're trying to teach how to do something. The programming they have is not the programming that you have. So what you do is to teach them and be patient with them to learn. And I'm speaking of those that are having biases towards their domestic workers, towards their domestic staff. You have to teach them. If you don't teach them, how would they know? Sometimes we expect a level of perfection that even us did not attain in that manner. Sometimes we are so demanding of people that we don't even recognize that when we were in a place where people demanded such excellence from us, at the snap of a finger, we didn't appreciate it. But we repeated the same thing, having not learned that people would only perform up to their level of awareness, and for them to do better, they have to know better. If we know better and we get someone who doesn't, it is our responsibility to parent, not necessarily biologically, but I talk about biological, institutional, and societal parents. So wherever it is that you are, parenting, being tutoring, teaching, mentoring, and coaching, so that they come to the fullness of who they can be, and they are able to deliver at the level that you want them to deliver. Now, what is a bias? A bias is a particular tendency, a trend, or an inclination or feeling, opinion as well, especially one that is preconceived or unreasoned. That's one. The second one that really hit hard was, it's an unreasonably hostile feeling or opinion about a social group, a prejudice, about a people. Of course, there are people that have excesses. Of course, there are people that are, you want a term, not normal, inhuman, whatever it is. But even in the middle of all of that, there are exceptions. And in the law of attraction, what you keep fixing your mind on, you would attract. And if you keep insisting that someone is something and possibly the person is not, it will get to the point where the person will be like, okay, since you already believe this about me, I can as well show you that that's how I am. So is it possible that sometimes we are teaching people how to treat us? Is it possible that sometimes we're making people who they were not simply by calling them what they were not up until the point they were like, okay, you want to see this? I'll give this to you. Since you think I am a scum, let me show you what a scum is like. So we put biases on people that possibly they don't deserve, that they shouldn't have to suffer because of an experience that we had. But actually given the benefit of the doubt, having investigated, having studied, and having watched to know before covering, because sometimes we cover people with a blanket before getting to know them. We name them, we label them before even encountering them. In human resources, there's a term called the halo and the horn effect. The halo effect, I can say a halo. The halo, which is what is over angels and over cupids. And the horn effect, you know the horn, yes, the horn that would put on the devil. And because someone has done evil, or a particular employee embezzled money, all employees are embezzlers. A particular employee who comes from a particular region of the country has been an exceptional performer. Hence, anybody that comes from an interview that is from that part of the country must be an exceptional performer. That's a halo effect, a halo effect. So you're putting a halo on a particular people simply because you experienced one that was like that. Or you're putting a horn on a particular people simply because you experienced one that is like that. So it goes both ways. Calling all the people from one place good because you experienced one, and calling all the people from one place bad because you experienced one. So coming to a place of balance and studying our patterns correctly so that we don't call people what they're not and label people like they're not and cause more harm to ourselves. And it all comes to how we communicate. Everything rises and falls on our ability to communicate correctly, communicate ourselves. So sometimes you feel someone is judging you wrongly, you may also want to check to find out, is it something I am doing or something that I am not doing, and how? And when you have checked yourself and it's okay, then you are able to tell yourself, okay, it's also possible that the person is looking at you from a bias. And if you can help the person, fine. If you can't, try referral, get someone else in that space that can intervene for that person and get the person to see life from a broader perspective. Because if we keep looking at life through our lenses, we'll keep bruising and hurting and stepping on people and messing up everyone that comes around us, because we have not come to the place where we learn to take over our lenses and try to see from a broader perspective so that we can be better judges of character, as against just putting horns on people or putting halos on people. So I hope that helped you. Let me hear your perspective and tell me about the time when you've had a bias towards someone, a guy, a girl, had a bias towards a domestic worker, had a bias towards a particular tribe or a particular language, towards a particular language. What is it? What triggered it? What exactly is the root of that bias that you have? It's very important that you check it so that it probably doesn't wreck you or wreck something that you're trying to build because you didn't check it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Drop a comment in the comment section of this video, or send me a message to info@StephREDD.com, or on any of my social media platforms. You can send me a DM at I am StephREDD, and I would be glad to speak to you, to share perspectives with you, because hey, I just shared my perspectives and there are over 7 billion perspectives in this world. So it's okay to have mine and it's okay to have yours. What's most important, that we're able to find the place where we have common ground, where we can win together. So up until the next time we meet, up until the next time I do a video like this, you have an amazing day, and ensure that you take care of yourself and that you do everything you can to win. Never give up until that happens. And even if you don't win, it's okay. We don't always win. Sometimes we may be first, sometimes we may be 10th, and someone else takes a position. The most important thing is that you ensure that you finish strong. And when you have done your best and you know it is your best is good enough up until you know better. So till the next time, you stay amazing. I am StephREDD. Have a fantastic day. Bye.